dropped my iPad at a parent night at Chinook Trail onto the floor in the cafeteria, and there's this collective gasp, but I do it every night because I have a really nice case to demonstrate to the parents that it's important to have a nice case for your student's device. So I have yet to crack a screen. Thanks for the new iPad for us. So damage and theft is number one. Number two is screen time. I actually just gave a presentation at the Parent Academy on the new American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines for screen time. And we talk about that, about this is a community building piece, this is about digital citizenship, and this is about having communication with your family. That the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending that parents no longer say X number of minutes, but instead say, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what a device is for, where it should be in the house. What are we going to do with it? Why are you using it? And having these open conversations with families. So that's number two. And then the number three concern is student safety on the internet, both the data privacy side and the inappropriate access side. And I get to talk about filtering and our dual authentication system and our new Palo Alto network, and how students need to have conversations, or families need to have conversations with their students at home about appropriate use, because one of those skills that we're trying to develop in our students is discernment, that they will be wise with the tools that they have. So concerns that we continue to have are still the same things, right? What's the device going to cost me? Is it going to be safe? Are my students going to be safe online? The big concern that surprised some of the schools was, this is teacher and administrator concerns, was the use of a phone as a primary device. Because it's smaller, of course it's not as functional, but also that students view it as a medium for them to communicate with their friends rather than a learning tool. Even though this thing has 100,000 times the computing power that we had in Houston to land men on the moon. This thing right here. So those are the concerns, but mostly at the end of a parent night, parents come up to me and I'm all ready to just be pounced on and for them to say, I can't believe you're letting this tool into my kid's hands. And I just say, okay, what's your question? What's your question? They say, what kind of device should I get my kid? So, of course, we have parents who don't want to participate philosophically or financially. That makes sense. We have legitimate concerns for that, and we say, you are still the parent. You are still in charge. But this is a tool that we're using at school. We're going to use it effectively, we're going to use it wisely, and we're not going to stick your kids in front of a screen and replace the teacher. It is really important for our kids to learn to control their education through pace and place and path, helping them determine what it is they want, helping them identify what it is they want to solve and how they want to get there. And then we say, well, let's do it well and have guided instruction from excellent teachers.
Mrs. Van Meter.
So how do we deal with, how are those students appropriately accommodated whose parents simply object and say, no, this is not okay for my child? So how do we accommodate them, and what do we do for that student?
Well, do you mean parents who say, I won't buy a device and so we won't have one home, or do you mean parents who don't want a device? Period.
If they just don't want their kid doing that and having a device, how do we do all of this?
Well, that's a good question.
Have we had any?
We've had some parents who say, absolutely not, my child should not have a device. But we say, well, we've been doing this for the last 5 years. We still use devices at school. We're in the computer labs, and we've got iPad cards, and we're using them wisely and well.
So I'm assuming then they just use the devices at school?
They use the devices at school. So,
okay.
And each of the schools has a different plan for it if a parent won't provide a device or cannot provide a device. Some of it's checkout in the morning and return at the end of the day. Some of them it's checkout for the semester. Some of them it's checkout in each classroom, those kinds of things. So we are providing for students, and for students whose device runs out of battery or has a technical difficulty, we've got, and each of the school's plans is really different, which is kind of fun to see the way that every administrator brainstorms, okay, how am I going to provide these devices? How am I going to make sure that every kid has access so that nobody's left behind just because we don't have access to technology?
So I guess I was going to ask, in terms of the survey, I'm curious about something. Have we asked any questions, or do we know? And if we haven't, I'm curious if we might ask this question eventually. Because you said the concern of the parents was, the phone seen, and I had the same concern with my kids, right? The phone is seen as an entertainment device and a communication with my friend's device. And one of the things we've talked so much about, Mr. Strebe and I actually had this conversation, he got me thinking about it one time at a conference about the idea that, you know what, this thing is so much more than text and a phone call device. And it's so much more than looking up the scores on ESPN.
Wait.
I mean, there's just so, yeah, I know, it's amazing, right? You can do more than that with it. But I mean, the idea of, and I've really been thinking on this and really hitting this point home with my 19-year-old and my 21-year-old. You know, really honestly, if you have one of these things and you have an internet connection, there's no excuse for you not to be educated. Anyone in the world can be educated anymore. You can audit courses from MIT on this thing. And you can take the same coursework people do at MIT. You just don't get credit for passing the class, but you can learn everything that they can learn. There's no reason for people not to do that. Are we changing through this? Do we know? Have we surveyed our kids? And if we haven't, might we in the future to find out, are there attitudes about this changing?
I think that's an excellent question. Part of our goal in this program is to help develop good citizens in the digital age, and we have a specific program that we're using called Common Sense Media, their Digital Passport, Digital Compass program, to try and help kids navigate the digital social world. And I think you're right, we need to help kids identify that this is something more than that. How do we move forward? And I think that's something that we should add to our survey. Thank you for that.
Well, it's one, you know, it's one of the things, I mean, we talked about at that conference, and I spent the whole year after we talked about that using, Mr. Strebe talked to me about using your camera on your phone as a productivity tool. It was considerably less common when he was first doing it. It's more common now. I see people doing it all the time. But I spent an entire year focusing on that. And I have so many things now that I've learned how to use my camera as a productivity tool. Your camera is a magnifying glass.
Right.
If you have old eyes like I do, you know? I mean, you take a picture of something, and I taught my mother this, you know, and my mother and her 75-year-old eyes. Now I'm like, take a picture of that label of that thing on that shelf that you're trying to read and zoom in. You can see it. And there are so many amazing things you can do, and I have to give him credit for that because we had this whole conversation about it. But yeah, I find the idea fascinating, and I hope that through doing this BYOD program, one of the things that we do is I do hope we find that we're changing kids' attitudes about it, because I think it's a darn shame that so many people in America of various income levels have one of these devices in their hand, and they don't recognize the power that they have to know just about anything.
Yeah.
All of the knowledge, most all of the knowledge that's ever been known to mankind, you can find it somewhere on there. You can find it if you want to look hard enough, and if you want to look at enough sources and you want to figure it out. So I find that concept fascinating.
Just 5 years ago, before we started the iPad program at Pine Creek, we had the same question because kids only seem to say, this was anecdotally from teachers, kids, they only think of their tablet, their iPad, as just a social device. And now we've changed that around to where they're using those devices to construct and demonstrate learning. They're making movies, they're making audio podcasts, and they're using it just on an iPad, something that initially was poo-pooed as just an entertainment reception device. And I think as we transfer from laptops being a constructive device to tablets being a device that you can use to demonstrate knowledge and actually generate knowledge and generate information, I think soon that we'll see that the phone is also one of those pieces.
Well, I'll be fascinated to see if you ask that question, what those responses look like. I find that very interesting. So, thank you.
Look forward to reporting to you again next year.
Yay.
Thank you
Mrs.
very much.
Walker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not done.
Oh.
I want to say, first of all, I appreciate your passion and excitement for this program. And I was going to actually ask a lot of the questions that Mrs. Van Maren just asked, but I did, well, first of all, anecdotally, my son, when he was in 5th grade, had a class where his teacher had a set of iPads and used it for learning. And when he went to 6th grade, he was horribly bored and complained all the time that, you know, why can't we have this iPads back? Learning was fun. And now all we do is listen to the teacher lecture. And so it was, and so I realized then how important these devices are sometimes for these kids who are so, I don't know, squirrel, you know. Are you that way, Don? And so anyhow, I'll say that first of all. So I wanted to ask you, so initially schools applied, but they were not selected. So now have all schools who are interested in this program are now being allowed to do it?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
In the first year, schools applied, and we took all 6 that applied.
Oh, you did?
We did.
Oh, okay.
So We thought that we would get more interest that first year, but we didn't get as many as we thought, and so we took all the ones that applied.
So I thought Mr. Romero had told me they applied and didn't get accepted, but maybe he.
Perhaps, it may be that
Okay, initial.
maybe that I'm mistaken that first year.
Initially, but maybe it was more that we weren't ready.
I think that may have been a decision at their level to say, we're not
Okay.
quite ready for this. But I wasn't brought on board until July
Okay.
27th of last year.
Okay, so basically, any school who's interested in this program is being allowed.
Any school that
Yeah.
wants to, yeah.
Okay, and just to clarify what you were saying, are phones being allowed as a device or they're not?
Well, this is a decision that's being made at every school. Our recommended device size is 8 inches diagonally or larger, and the only schools that have said yes right now, well, it was Rampart and Air Academy and Timberview Middle School. And I believe Timberview is continuing to allow those devices as part of the way they're making sure that every kid has a device. But no school is saying you should get a cell phone. They're recommending a laptop or a tablet.
I could definitely see the dilemma because it's very small and you can hide the screen.
And
But,
the other-
you know, but the flip side is our kids, I mean, they use these for everything. As I was leaving for my board meeting, I yelled at my daughter, get off your phone and start working on your college essays, and she said, I am.
I am.
You know, it's like, seriously, you're writing your college essay on your phone? And so, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that one of the concerns about the phones also is that the students, if they choose to violate the responsible use agreement, are getting onto their own data plan, and so they're unfiltered. And that's part of the thing that teachers said, well, I can't really tell. Because the icon is so small, and how do I manage that? And so we're moving to you. Well, we already were at. You must sign into the Wi-Fi of the district so that we can both track you and protect you.
And are your filters, are you able to block advertising? Figured out how to.
So ad block is something that really is happening inside. This is a technical question. It's not really part of our filtering system. The ads that come from sites that we know are inappropriate or that are blocked as a general rule also get blocked. But some sites, of course, have advertising that is native to that website. And so if it's part of this network that we say is already okay, say it comes from Apple or Google or Discovery Education, well, Discovery Education is not the answer, but something that we already would have unblocked, if they had advertising that came natively from their own same URL, it would come through. But if it comes from known inappropriate sites or things that we would just block for various reasons, it would also be blocked. It's safer internet, and that's one of the pieces that we try and emphasize to parents.
Ms. Johnson?
I am so impressed. I was listening to your presentation, which thank you very much. It was very thorough, and you are a wonderful ambassador for the BYOD and Dr. Hutchins' initiative in that regard. I was thinking about conferences I've attended in years past where the brave new thing was blended classrooms, and I see what I consider to be yet another example of District 20 taking a great idea, making it their own, and adapting it, just like the schools have adapted the program. We've taken it, and I so applaud the district, you for your leadership, and all of you. I am unclear on one point though. Is it the goal for everyone to have their own device, every student, or is it just the schools that elect to adopt that philosophy?
I think that the reality is in the future, every student will have a device, whether that's a 5 or a 10 or a 15-year future. I would say at the lower grades, that's probably not going to be the case. But the objective of the device is to support learning programs. So schools who haven't adopted it yet, they haven't seen a need that the device is going to fill. What I don't want to do is have a school say, they've got devices, we should have devices. I want to make sure that they're saying, we have a need, and the device is the way that we're going to fulfill it. And until we are at a place where every school sees that that's exactly what they want to do, I think that we shouldn't push for it. I suspect that in the next 5 or 10 years, that almost every school in the district, certainly at the high school level and the middle school level, we're already there at the middle school level and the high school level, but at the elementary school level, I'm not sure how they'll see that need being fulfilled, whether it will be through student-owned devices or school-provided devices. It's going to depend on what their different programs are. How does International Baccalaureate play into this? How does a language immersion program play into this? What ways are they going to use those devices and make sure that it's an effective use of the financial resources and the resources of the teachers they have?
And are you also available to instruct or guide those schools that are using their own programs, like Liberty's OneNote 360? How do you maintain harmony or unification with the overriding goals?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And yeah, you want to answer that?
Yeah.
I'd love you to answer.
So that is where then our entire team comes in, and so that's, we talk about, we debrief, we brief every week, and we look and talk about, right now, myself and one other person are more intimately involved with Liberty and their launch, and so we calibrate with Michael and the work that they're doing in the BYOD schools, so that they're, where it needs to be consistent, it is consistent. But again, in the site-based nature, there's a lot of flexibility. But right now, what I do like about what Liberty has done, they really looked at a particular Microsoft tool, OneNote, and then the devices started to follow, which is really a nice progression because it gets the learning out in front, more so than just like they talked about, not just a shiny device. So that's how we bring the consistency.
And one of the other pieces is that I share an office with Roger Henson. He's our Silk Strand coordinator running the one-to-one program. And he and I used to work together when I was at Pine Creek helping run that program. And now we are able to collaborate and say, where do our two programs align? Because pedagogically, they're almost the same. They're only using iPads. Most of the schools I'm working with are using various devices. But we are trying to support learning goals, and the only difference is who's providing the device. That's the big change. And so as a team, we work together a lot, and we're starting to make inroads with curriculum instruction to say, how can we make sure that our communication coming from central office is actually consistent with each other?
Thank you.
Thank you for the great work.
You know, just real briefly, and I don't want to be too philosophical about this, but Ms. Johnson's first question certainly caught my attention. I would say welcome to Academy 20 in our site-based nature. Will everyone end up with this? They may. I think one of the things we certainly believe in here is site-based decision-making, and I spoke to the same topic when we talked about career pathways. I believe the most successful way for implementation is for a school that wants it. So a school that wants it, and enthusiastic about it happening. We have incredible resources here to help them make that happen at their school.
Thank you.
And I think where school districts, and I've worked in a number of them, where they get in trouble is they say, all right, we're going to do this BYOD implementation across the school district. And I. Yes,
Welcome to the federal government.
Update on the Hall of Excellence, Dr. Natchell.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cortez.
They're gonna come and like be my backup dancers.
Finally.
We're out of here.
Thank you for having me. I'm here to do an update on Hall of Excellence. And I was sitting back there and I was thinking, man, this is pretty cool that I get to update you about Hall of Excellence tonight, because I think many of you were talking about what you were thankful for and how this district is really built on this tradition and culture of excellence. And this is the ultimate way to honor that excellence. So I wanted to, let's first make sure that I can use this the right way. Oh, it's not working. Like it's not turning, oh there it is, okay. Okay, so I just broke down to go through the Hall of Excellence. I know that many of you probably had updates last year, but because I wasn't here and because I didn't know who was going to be in the audience, wanted to make sure I just did a little bit of level setting and then moved into where we're going from this point forward. So I broke the process down into 4 parts. I want to talk a little bit about the scope, that kind of defining the scope of the Hall of Excellence. Then I wanted to talk about the framework that we pulled together, and then actually building the hall and the actual celebration event. So the first thing I wanted to just go forward with was where did this whole thing come from, right? Like why a Hall of Excellence, why do something like this? And so if you remember in 15-16, it was a superintendent initiative. But the initiative really came from how do we honor this excellence tradition that is in District 20? Where's the best way to do that? How do we bring that to life, and how do we create a legacy where we can celebrate that excellence and it lives on far beyond any of us? So how do we do that? And so a committee came together, and what they really found was this idea of Hall of Excellence as a best practice in school districts all across the country. Here locally, D11 has something, Palmer Ridge has something, but even as far as Silicon Valley, New York City, this is just something that people do, and everybody's looks a little bit different. So we took those best ideas, we stole what we really liked, we let go of the rest, and we said, now we're gonna make this better than anybody else's. So, because that's what we do. Not that I'm a little competitive. But, so the next is we developed a framework around the Hall of Excellence. And the committee that came together was fully representative of parents, teachers, community members, friends of the district. And they came together and they said, first and foremost, we need to establish a mission statement. And this is what they came up with. And that they really wanted a way to create a legacy of extraordinary contributions. And because of this mission, they wanted to make sure that it really stood apart. It wasn't like the annual awards that we do. It wasn't similar to any other type of award ceremony, that this was the pinnacle of an award that you could get from the district. So the committee came together, they made this mission statement, and then the other two things that they did, and they're the handouts that were provided in your packet, they created a rubric, so a judging rubric, and then they also created the categories in which people could be nominated. So there's a few different categories. The first category is somebody that worked for the district, and that would be, it could be a teacher, it could be administrator, really anybody under the umbrella of a district employee. And they created some framework around there around how long they had to have been retired, and I believe it's 5 years, and how long they had to have worked at education and at the district. And really that one gets a lot of questions sometimes, and the reason that they created that distinction about being retired and working within education in the district for that period of time is, again, they didn't want any overlap between this award set and a yearly Teacher of the Year, Administrator of the Year. So they wanted to make sure that there was some kind of different buckets there. There's also a category for a partner or a community member or a friend of the district. So if somebody just was a community member but they did something really big and beautiful, they're somebody that could be nominated as well. And then there's another category, kind of a catch-all. So just in case there's somebody that did something awesome, but maybe they didn't live here, maybe they didn't work here, but they still did something awesome. We're not gonna leave them out, right? So the other two distinctions that I really want to call out, just to make sure, is there's going to be two sets of honorary members to the Hall of Excellence, and that's actually board members up until this point in time, and then moving forward, we'll add on their names, and then also the superintendents of the district. So as a best practice, learned that that's super important. That's something that many of the districts said in retrospect, we really wish we would have done that, and we would recommend anybody that's moving forward that didn't do this, you consider doing that, because it's just a better process that way. So that takes us to current day. So at the end of fiscal year, this is all of the work that had been done, including the great selfie wall out there. I think most people just think that's where they get to take selfies, but it's which is great organic branding exposure, so it's okay. But so as you can see, every time you come in and out, the wall has been built. It's beautiful. It's curved. It's got the beautiful wording. The lights have been built, and that's where it stopped. So now here we are today, and that's where we're at, and here's how we go forward. So now we're in those last two phases of build and celebrate. And on here you'll see some key dates moving forward, what's going to happen in the next 3 months, to really not just keep it the great selfie wall, but really bring that thing to life. Okay. So before we build it, you better go take your selfie, because I'm going to take it away. So this month, we're at the place now where we are finalizing the judging committee, and it is a 5-person committee. And it will have a community member, much like the committee that formed the Hall of Excellence. It will have a teacher, either past or present, administrator, past or present, board member, past or present, community partner, and then another category. So it'll be a 5-person committee to make sure there's no ties. And also we wanted to be really representative of those 5 categories that really contribute to the district. So that committee will be formed this week, which is by tomorrow, so we're really close. And then the next thing that will happen is we're working really closely with IT to develop a landing page. So it will be your one-stop shop for Hall of Excellence. It will be the way that we brand, it'll be the way that we advertise, and it'll be the place that you can go look at the criteria and fill out the whole form, upload all of your documents, and you're done. No mail, no paper, everything's in that one-stop shop. So that will be the next thing. And then the last thing is we'll start advertising this month. So you'll start to see 20 alerts, you'll see little ads in the weekly papers, you'll see flyers, and you'll see kind of banner ads on web. So that gets us through November. In December, there's 2 big dates in December. And I think to me the most important date is by the 20th. If you're thinking about nominating somebody, you better get it in by the 20th. Because our goal is to send the committee on their wonderful holiday break with big, beautiful packets of things to read. No cookies for them. They're going to be reading packets throughout the holiday season. So that'll be the big date, and then also we'll get a save the date, but we also made sure that we checked all the calendars to make sure that the date that we're picking for the first event was good for everybody. So save the dates will go out in December. Then when we come back in January, that very first week, the committee reconvenes. It's just like 2-hour process. They will have had a chance to go through everything. They come together and they vote on that first class of inductees. And the thing there that's important is, so say we get 5 really beautiful nominations and they're all in the same category, we're going to do all 5. If we get 10, but 10 are no good, we won't do any. So it really is about quality and not quantity. We don't feel like we have to have this certain number of people that we're inducting every year. It's really about contribution. And as we think about the people that are submitting nominations, the example that I've been using with everybody is that long-lasting legacy. And the thing that I keep saying is that person that one day was hiking and said, you know, it would be the coolest thing ever if we built a school in the woods. And not only did they think about that idea, but they went out and they found the resources and they found the partners and they brought that thing to life. Those are the kind of people that are Hall of Excellence people. Not that others' contributions aren't worthy, but it's that long-lasting, after we're well and gone, it's still here and it made D20 what it is and what it will continue to be. So those are the kind of nominations we'll be looking for by December 20th. And then in January, the other big thing is invites will go out. And so this all leads to the big first party on February 10th. So on February 10th, it's a Friday, and between 4:30 and 6:30, it will be an induction ceremony. The other thing that will be happening behind the scenes on the wall is we're going to start to build that wall out. So originally, the thought was that plaques would, like nameplates would just go on the wall, but that's not possible. So we're really going to work to some steel, plexiglass, some really beautiful things, and build out a wall so that it is really a sight to be seen. And so the goal is, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can have a big unveiling that night, and it'll be a big celebration in the atrium, and then we'll move everybody and we'll unveil the wall. So I'll ask just questions. Comments. You got it. The people that have seen me get this, a college professor of mine did this, and I always thought it was like the funniest thing. And so I'm like, I'm stealing that when I'm grown up. And so I stole it, and so when people get it, it makes me happy.
Any questions?
You're all gonna nominate people, right?
I'm a little bit intimidated, frankly.
Already thinking about it.
No, I'll, Ms. Cortez, how wonderful to have you leading this charge with your true joie de vivre. And I think I love the framework that's been established. I'm so grateful that board members are not candidates. I think that would be horrible, because how could you distinguish between? And so I'm so grateful for that. Likewise,
board member did a better job than the
Duck and cover.
Yeah. So well done. I'm excited to see the finished product. And my only cry of disbelief is that we waited so long. So very good.
Thank you. We'll make up for it.
You know, I don't remember anymore. It may have been at an ASD conference or AASA. I sat in on a session on this, and what you talked about, there was a number of school districts that had implemented this, and to a person, that's what they all said. But the superintendents put the past board members up there, put them on the side, that way, get them up there, and then they all gave that advice, and then you honor people, that get significant contributions, don't have that backfighting for years. And so they all said that, and that's the plan we're gonna go forward with. And I can't compliment what Ms. Cortez is. She She has a real gift that's been forwarded and it's outstanding on February 10th.
Pressure over her.
I'm thinking about someone, but I don't know where to find out the information. I mean, I know the name, but I don't know where to substantiate it. What would I do? I mean, how intensive is the whole nomination process?
It's not too bad. So if you have a name, I think that's the great thing is if you know someone and you're like, man, I really think they did something amazing, and it's totally fair to reach out for us. I mean, we do have some historical archives that we could hook you up with, and because all you have to do is it can't exceed 1,000 words, but it's 1,000 words about what did this person do.